One of the concerns that I have is that often seeking to monetize rewards actually drives out altruistic type behavior that's carried out within a community. And it's, if you like, the hidden downside of trying to treat everything as a currency, whether it's an alternative currency or a complementary currency. And it's a comment I would like to make, and maybe some of the panel would like to comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's take another question. Raoul, please. Take the mic.
So, as to the last question asked to the panel, I think I'm somewhat disappointed about the discussion. Why? I think the first question to be answered is, do we need a reference point in the monetary system or systems, as there was one until 1971? So this is a basic question. And this is basic to me. And then afterwards, if the answer is yes, okay, or no, when it's no, then discussion is over. When the answer is yes, that we need a reference point, then one can discuss how that reference point has to look like before discussing about energy or stuff like that. So there are more options in principle, and that has to be clarified to my understanding. Yeah. So that should be. I add to another point that is today and also a little bit in the panel. The notion of the nation has been repeated. The nation state is old, the 19th century. Many problems are not bound to the nation state concept. Although that the United Nations is built on the nation state, the nation has a legal entity. And we see what the United Nations can do. So I cannot understand that in the discourse of money and regional, etc., that the concept of nation state with a central bank is still present in the discussions. So I have their problem. So this is the question mark behind that. So that's all.
Thank you. Please.
So, Professor Grigori Feigen at the University of Economy and Finance in St. Petersburg, Russia. So, hello, Professor Grigori Feigen, University. Professor Grigori Feigen. Professor Grigori Feigen at the University of Economy and Finance in St. Petersburg. I have a question about currency unions. Practically, we have now a big currency union, Eurozone, with all problems, and we have a few small currency unions, for example, so in America, the Caribbean group in Africa, and we have many plans in Asia, Middle East, and so on to create currency unions practically based on the model of Eurozone. My question is, what do you mean? It's necessary, do we need such currency unions? And what do you think about their future?
Thank you. Now the panel. The question has been understood, please.
Very short so my question is, what do you think about the future of all these plans connected with the creation of currency unions in Africa, in Asia, in South America, and so on? Do we need these unions, and what do you think about the future of these plans?
Though it's catched at least a bit, who wanted to answer? For all these questions.
Just say the words of three questions, especially the questions. Really, it depends what you like. It depends what you want to build. I personally feel that the major question today is, do we want to stick to the traditional values, or do we want to change values? We only know that religious values, especially in Europe, Christian values, are something that we want to practice further. But other universal values, which can be defined by philosophers and others, I think they have to be re-examined. That's the answer to your question. Do we need to build an alternative or anything else? I'm not going to discuss your second point. That's identity. You know, we are all, and we don't appreciate that every one of us, every human being has many identities, depending on the situation. But in my feeling, in contemporary world, the major identity is professional identity, not national identity, not sports identity, not computer identity, and so on. We have to change our opinion. We have to live knowing to work something. We spend most of our life doing professional work. So I'm not ashamed to say, I adore my country, I adore my nationality, but I'm by my identity first engineer and scientist. And that's something we have to clear. Talking on the nationality, talking on close boundaries, frontiers, that's past. We have all granddaughters, some of you have a young children. My granddaughter is only 5 years old. She's a computer fan, 5 years old. Her identity now is computer games, nothing else. And we have to think in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. It's now Michael and then Margaret.
I understand the question. It's should money be connected to a commodity at all? That's what we were discussing. And especially, should it be linked to a means of paying debt to a commodity? And as the discussion was evolving, it became, what kind of a nation or a government should we have? If government is going to be a financial oligarchy, then of course we have a problem, and the financial oligarchy wants to make an interregional government and impose itself internationally, essentially into a neo-feudal type of arrangement. Or should we have economic democracy? I think governments are an arena. Government is not bad or good as such. A financial oligarchy is bad, and economic democracy is good, but economic democracy is losing out to the financial oligarchy. I've written on this earlier this year in the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, but I think that we should realize that government itself is an arena, and that has made the currency issue into an arena and the debt issue into an arena. All of these things are in play at once, and we need to look at the economy and the government as an overall system, not take a part-by-part approach to this.
Thank you. It's now Margaret and then Christian.
Yes. I would like to address the question by Mr. Molloy, who I understand wanted to know whether we advocate a sort of encompassing monetization of all aspects of social life by means of complementary currencies. And I want to agree with you, that is a problem. And I've experienced that firsthand in the community I live for 27 years now, where we have tried 4 times to implement a complementary currency to serve the community and the village where we live. And it was impossible because people said, I don't want to put a value on helping my neighbor to do this and the other. And by always putting figures to something, it creates a social coldness. You know, it is, and I think the best person who has written about this is Charles Eisenstein, who is one of the real thinkers in the Occupy movement in the United States, who says one of the big problems we have right now is that there are hardly any more areas of life which are not monetized, and that we are coming to a point where this is getting really difficult. I mean, looking after elderly people, looking after sick people, looking after children, it all is being farmed out, and people are getting paid to do the job. All the things that have been part of the family earlier on, mostly women, and so on. And although we may not want to revert to earlier times, I think it needs to be, that needs to be one of our, how can you say that, one of our criteria too. Is this area which we're going to develop, for which we're going to develop a currency, whether it's energy or whether it's education or whatever, is the monetization of that area going to help, or is it going to hinder, for instance, neighbors helping each other, etc.? So I think there's a very good question, and it really needs to be part of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Margaret, although I think most people working on currency alternatives or complementary currencies are not people who think everything should be monetized, right? So, I mean, that's important to say. I think what we are working on is possibilities to bring exchange resources into areas where the mainstream monetary system is simply not going. That, I think, can go either way, but in many ways it is actually coming as a help towards what you were saying. And there are many examples where complementary currencies are, or whatever you want to call them, incentive